Imagine for a moment that the sun has just gone down. You are parked in a quiet lot, and within minutes, you feel the temperature inside your vehicle plummeting. A van without a proper heating system acts just like a metal icebox. It loses heat at a terrifying rate, dropping about 1 degree every single 6 minutes. By the time midnight rolls around, the metal walls around you are the exact same temperature as the freezing air outside. If it is 15 degrees out there, it is 15 degrees in here, right next to your skin. That is not just uncomfortable or miserable. That is the beginning of hypothermia, and it is a silent killer that thousands of people living in vehicles face every single winter. But here is the truth that offers us hope. You do not need a trust fund or a 6-figure custom build to survive and even thrive in these conditions. There are thousands of resourceful people living in vans, trucks, and cargo trailers right now who have cracked the code. They stay warm all winter long, and some of them spend almost $0 to do it. The ingenuity they use to generate free heat and electricity would shock most homeowners who are drowning in $200 monthly utility bills. In this video, we are going to dive deep into 10 life-saving heating and power hacks that full-time vehicle dwellers swear by. These aren't theories. These are battle-tested survival strategies. Some of these will cost you absolutely nothing. A few will cost less than a decent pair of winter boots, and one of them is a game changer that 90% of the van life community has not even discovered yet. If you or someone you care about is currently living in a vehicle or considering it, please listen closely. This information isn't just about comfort. It is literally the difference between suffering through a brutal winter and sleeping soundly through the night. Before we get to the hacks, we need to address the invisible enemy that ruins more winters than the cold itself. It is moisture. Most people obsess over the temperature, but the cold is only half the battle. Every time you exhale, you release warm, humid air into your small living space. In a sealed metal box like a van, that moisture has nowhere to escape. It drifts until it hits the cold metal walls where it instantly condenses into water. It drips down onto your bedding, it soaks into your insulation, and it dampens your clothes. This is dangerous because wet insulation is useless insulation. Even worse, damp clothing pulls heat away from your body 25 times faster than dry air does. So, you are actually fighting a war on 2 fronts. The freezing air trying to break in, and your own breath trying to rot everything from the inside out. Every single hack we are about to discuss tackles one or both of these critical problems. And pay attention to the order, because the first few foundational hacks are exactly what make the advanced ones effective. Let's start with the first and most crucial hack, which we call the thermal curtain partition. This is the single smartest move you can make, and it effectively costs nothing if you have a spare heavy blanket lying around. If not, a quick trip to a thrift store with $15 will solve it. Think about the anatomy of a standard van. You have a massive windshield, 2 front driver and passenger windows, and maybe a rear window. That is a staggering amount of glass. And in the world of thermodynamics, glass is one of the absolute worst insulators known to man. It essentially bleeds heat. The entire cab area, including the dashboard, the steering wheel, and those seats, acts like a giant freezer block. On a cold night, that front section alone can be responsible for more than 50% of your total heat loss. So, before you rush out to buy a heater, you must stop the bleeding. You need to physically separate that freezing cab from your living quarters. By hanging a heavy blanket, a thick thermal curtain, or even a moving pad from a tension rod right behind the front seats, you create a thermal barrier. You are essentially building a wall between yourself and that massive heat sink. Psychologically and physically, this shrinks the space you need to keep warm. Instead of trying to heat a 15-foot cavernous van, you are now only heating an 8-foot cozy sleeping pod. This simple change makes every other heating method on this list 30 to 40% more efficient immediately. We have seen real-world tests where a van dweller used a thermometer on both sides of this curtain. The cab side was freezing at 28 degrees, while the sleeping side, warmed only by body heat and trapped air, sat comfortably at 41 degrees. That is a 13-degree difference just from hanging a piece of fabric. No fuel, no electricity, just smart physics. And do not forget the floor. Cold air is heavy and it creeps in through the cracks. Take 10 seconds to stuff a rolled-up towel along the bottom edge of your sliding door or the curtain itself. It stops that icy draft like a dam stops water, adding another 3 to 5 degrees of warmth to your sanctuary. Now that we have shrunk the room, let's tackle the remaining glass with our second hack, DIY Reflectix window insulation. This takes the concept of insulation to the next level. Reflectix is that silver, bubble wrap-looking material you see at hardware stores. A roll costs about $20, and it is worth its weight in gold. The science here is fascinating. Reflectix does not just block air, it reflects radiant heat. When you cover your windows with this material, making sure the shiny side faces inward, it acts like a mirror for heat. Up to 97% of the radiant heat your body generates bounces back into the room instead of passing through the glass and vanishing into the night. However, there is a secret to making this work that most beginners miss. It is called the air gap. If you just press the Reflectix flat against the cold glass, thermal bridging occurs, and the insulation value drops to almost nothing, around R1. The trick is to cut your panels slightly larger than the window frame so you can friction fit them in place. This creates a small, crucial pocket of air between the material and the glass. That dead air space is what actually insulates you, bumping the effectiveness up to around R3. For those who need to stay stealthy and avoid looking like a spaceship is parked on the street, here is a pro tip. Cover the outward-facing side of your panels with black fabric or black gaffer tape. From the outside, it just looks like you have heavily tinted windows. Nobody will know you are inside staying warm. During the day, you pop them out to let the sun in, and at night, they snap back in for privacy and warmth. A couple who lived through 2 harsh winters in a Chevy Express reported that on nights they used these properly fitted panels. Their interior was 12 degrees warmer than on nights they forgot them. That is a massive return on a $20 investment. Let's move on to hack number 3, which many veterans call the boiling water double trick. It sounds almost too simple to be true. But there is hard science backing this up, and it is a favorite among those who have survived winters in the wild. The process starts with a simple act. Boil a pot of water on your small butane stove. A single canister of butane costs roughly $2 and gives you about 8 hours of burn time. So, this trick literally costs pennies per use. As that water begins to boil, it releases steam and intense radiant heat directly into your van's air. In a small space, especially one where you have already installed your thermal curtain and Reflectix panels, the effect is immediate and dramatic. Within just 5 minutes of that flame running, most people find themselves needing to shed a layer of clothing because the ambient temperature rises so quickly. But here is where the genius comes in, doubling the value of that single boil. Once the water reaches a rolling boil, do not just let it sit there. Pour it immediately into a Nalgene bottle or a similar high-quality, thick-walled container designed to handle extreme heat. Please, do not try this with a standard rubber hot water bottle or a cheap plastic container. They can warp, leak, and cause serious burns. Nalgene bottles are practically indestructible and handle boiling water safely. Wrap that hot bottle in a thick wool sock or a small towel and slide it into the bottom of your sleeping bag about 10 minutes before you plan to sleep. That bottle becomes a powerful thermal battery. It will release a steady, comforting warmth for 4 to 6 hours straight. Mountaineers and military units have relied on this exact survival technique for decades to stave off hypothermia. It effectively raises the temperature inside your sleeping bag by roughly 10 degrees. So, think about the efficiency here. One simple pot of water gave you an immediate blast of heat for your living room and a long-lasting personal heater for your bed. 2 distinct heating solutions for the price of a few cents of fuel. Speaking of stoves, hack number 4 takes a daily necessity and reclassifies it as a survival strategy. Cooking as heating. If you are already cooking dinner inside your van using a propane or butane stove, you are unintentionally heating your home. However, most people fail to maximize this potential. A pot of hearty stew simmering for 30 minutes on a single burner produces enough residual heat to raise the interior temperature of a small van by 8 to 12 degrees. That is not a rough guess. That is data measured by people living this life. You are preparing your sustenance and warming your sanctuary simultaneously without spending an extra dime on fuel. But there is a second biological layer to this hack that is often overlooked. It is called diet-induced thermogenesis. When you consume high-fat, calorie-dense meals like chili, oatmeal with peanut butter, or rice and beans with oil, your body goes to work. Digesting those dense calories requires energy, and that process generates measurable internal body heat. By eating a 500-calorie heavy meal about 30 minutes before bed, you are essentially turning your own metabolism into a biological space heater. One long-term van dweller shared that he specifically schedules his heaviest meal for late evening. Not necessarily because he is starving, but because he knows it keeps him significantly warmer through the night. Between the ambient heat from the stove and the internal heat from digestion, there are freezing nights where he needs no other heat source at all. A critical safety note here is ventilation. Anytime you burn fuel in a confined space, you must crack a window or a roof vent about an inch to allow for airflow and prevent carbon monoxide buildup. Once the cooking is done and the stove is off, seal everything back up tight to trap that valuable warmth inside. Now let's look at hack number 5, which professional van builders often cite as the single most underrated winter tool in existence: the 12-volt electric blanket. If you are worried about power consumption, let me put this in perspective for you. A typical ceramic space heater is a power hog, drawing around 120 amps per hour from a 12-volt system. That will kill your battery in minutes. In stark contrast, a 12-volt electric blanket plugs directly into your system and draws only about 4 to 5 amps per hour. That is a massive difference in efficiency. The electric blanket uses roughly 4% of the energy a space heater would require. Why is it so efficient? Because instead of trying to heat the empty air in the entire van, it focuses all its energy on heating you directly. A single deep cycle battery can run one of these blankets all night long without dying. You wake up warm, your battery still has plenty of juice, and you slept safely without burning any fuel or worrying about dangerous fumes. There is zero combustion involved. No exhaust to vent, no moisture from burning propane, and no need to keep a window cracked for safety. You can zip your sleeping bag up, turn on the blanket, and drift off for 8 hours of uninterrupted rest. Some dwellers layer it underneath their body so the heat rises through them, while others place it on top to trap warmth. For an item that costs between $25 and $40, it is hands down the most efficient overnight heating solution available for vehicle living. Moving on to hack number 6, which brings us back to equipment you already own: the cab heater morning blast. Every hack we have discussed so far has been incredibly cheap, but this one utilizes a system you paid for when you bought the vehicle. Every van has a powerful heater built into the engine. Many people hesitate to use it because they think idling is a waste of gas. But when used strategically, it is one of the most effective tools for breaking the morning chill. Here is the routine used by experienced nomads. You wake up, the air is biting cold, and you dread getting out of your warm sleeping bag. Instead of suffering, you reach over, start the engine, crank the heat to maximum, and open your curtain partition. Let that wave of hot air flood into your living space. Within 10 to 15 minutes, the entire van transforms from a freezer into a comfortable room where you can change clothes and make breakfast without shivering. The cost? Idling for 15 minutes consumes roughly a quarter to a third of a gallon of fuel, depending on your engine size. That translates to somewhere between 75 cents and $1. Technically, it is not free, but you are leveraging a powerful pre-installed system. The smartest play is to multitask. While the engine is idling and warming the air, put your kettle on the stove for your morning coffee. By the time the water boils, you have a warm van, a hot drink, and you are mentally ready to start the day. For many, this 3-part morning ritual, engine on, stove on, curtain open, is the key to mental health in the winter. It eliminates that miserable, bone-chilling shock that makes winter vehicle living feel unbearable, replacing it with a civilized, warm start to the day. Now, if you can afford to make just one significant investment of about $150, hack number 7 is the one that changes everything. We are talking about the Chinese diesel heater. This small, self-contained unit has revolutionized vehicle living in recent years. It taps directly into your van's existing diesel fuel tank, or if you drive a gas vehicle, you can easily run it off a separate small diesel jerry can mounted safely. The genius of this system lies in how it manages combustion. The unit mounts under a passenger seat or beneath the vehicle itself, with an exhaust pipe that vents all dangerous fumes outside. All the combustion happens externally. The only thing that enters your living space is a stream of warm, bone-dry air pushed through a small vent. On its lowest setting, this marvel of engineering burns about 1/10 of a liter of diesel per hour. That means a full night of cozy, thermostat-controlled heat for 8 hours costs you roughly the same as a single cup of cheap gas station coffee. But the biggest advantage isn't just the cost, it is the quality of the heat. Unlike propane heaters, which release moisture into the air as a byproduct of burning, a diesel heater produces dry heat. This dramatically reduces condensation on your walls and windows, solving that massive moisture problem we talked about at the beginning. It is one of the single biggest quality of life improvements you can make for winter living. Most units come with a digital thermostat, so you set your desired temperature, and the heater cycles on and off automatically while you dream. You sleep soundly, it keeps you warm, and you wake up with a fuel tank that barely noticed the consumption. The only catch is the installation process. It requires drilling a few holes, running a fuel line, mounting the unit, and routing an exhaust pipe. However, most handy people can accomplish this in a single afternoon with basic tools and a good YouTube tutorial. Once it is installed, it runs reliably for years with minimal maintenance. There is a reason this is the single most recommended upgrade in every full-time van-dwelling community online. It solves the heating problem almost entirely for about the same price as filling your gas tank twice. That covers heating, but remember, heat is only half of the equation for comfortable living. Every electric blanket, every fan, every phone charger, and every light needs electricity to run. And for someone living in a vehicle, electricity is not something that magically comes out of a wall socket. You have to manufacture it yourself. The next 3 hacks focus on how resourceful van dwellers generate free power without ever paying a monthly utility bill. Hack number 8 is alternator charging. Every time you turn your key and drive your van, your engine spins a component called an alternator. That alternator produces electricity to keep your starter battery charged and your vehicle's electronics running. But with a device called a DC to DC charger wired between your alternator and a separate house battery, you can capture that excess electricity and store it for later use. A decent DC to DC charger costs between $100 and $200, and it does something simple but vital. It takes the raw, fluctuating power from the alternator and converts it into the exact charging profile your specific house battery needs. This matters immensely because overcharging or undercharging batteries will destroy them quickly. The charger handles all of that science automatically. Think about your daily routine. A simple 30-minute drive to the grocery store can push 15 to 30 amps of power into your house battery. A 2-hour road trip can nearly fill a depleted battery completely. You are essentially generating electricity from gasoline you are already going to burn to get from point A to point B. The power is effectively free because it is a byproduct of your movement. For someone who drives even just a few times per week, alternator charging alone can keep a single house battery topped off indefinitely. That means your lights, your phone charging, your fan, and that cozy 12-volt blanket can run every night without you ever plugging into a grid. Some strategic van dwellers plan their errands specifically around their power needs. Low battery? Time to go do laundry at the laundromat across town. 30 minutes each way, and by the time your clothes are dry, your battery bank is full again. Hack number 9 is the classic solution: flat-mounted solar panels. Solar panels on a van roof are the closest thing to a free, permanent power source that exists for vehicle living. A single 100-watt panel is often enough to keep phones charged, run LED lights, and power a small ventilation fan. Step up to 200 watts, and you can run a 12-volt fridge 24 hours a day plus all your other gadgets. Go above 300 watts, and you are running laptops, charging power tools, and barely thinking about electricity conservation at all. The trick for urban van dwellers, especially anyone who needs to stay under the radar in cities, is flat mounting. By bolting panels flush to the roof brackets, they look like part of the vehicle's structure from street level. They do not stick up awkwardly, they do not catch wind on the highway, and they do not scream, "Someone is living in here." In cities where stealth is the key to a good night's sleep without a knock on the window, that low profile is worth more than a few extra watts you might get from a tilted mount. Now, winter is admittedly the weak season for solar energy. Shorter days, a lower sun angle, and frequent cloud cover all reduce your output significantly. But even in December, a 200-watt system in most parts of the country still produces enough trickle charge to cover basic electrical needs. And when solar falls short on those dark, cloudy days, That is exactly where alternator charging from hack number 8 picks up the slack. The two systems together, solar and alternator, create a perfect energy loop where you almost never run out of power. Solar fills the battery silently during the day while you are parked. Driving fills it rapidly when the sun cannot. One system covers the other's weakness, creating energy resilience. The upfront cost of a basic solar setup runs between $150 to $400 depending on the size. After that initial investment, the electricity is absolutely free for the life of the panels, which is typically 25 years or more. Finally, we arrive at hack number 10, the one that almost nobody knows about yet. It might be the most useful power hack to emerge in the last decade, the EV charging station hack. Look around you. Electric vehicle charging stations are popping up everywhere now. You see them at shopping centers, parking garages, highway rest stops, and town squares. They were built to charge electric cars like Teslas and Leafs. But with a specific power converter that costs around $200, van dwellers can unlock these stations to charge their own house battery banks. Here is how the magic works. Level 2 EV chargers output 220-volt power through a standardized plug called a J1772. Your power converter takes that high-voltage 220 volts and safely steps it down to standard 120-volt household current. This is the same kind of electricity that comes out of any wall outlet in your home. You simply plug the converter into the EV charger station, run a short extension cord from the converter's output to your van's shore power inlet, and your onboard inverter charger does the rest. It charges your house batteries just as if you were plugged into a campground hookup. The cost per charge is almost unbelievable when you do the math. One van couple traveling in Vermont tracked their usage over an entire winter season. Their average cost to fully charge a massive 200 amp-hour lithium battery bank from an EV station was just $4.97. Under $5 for a full battery that runs their heater, lights, fridge, and electronics for days at a time. Compare that to staying at a campground with electrical hookups, which can easily run $30 to $60 per night. Or compare it to idling your engine for 2 hours to charge via Alternator, which burns $4 or $5 in gas and puts wear and tear on your engine. The EV station solution is faster, cheaper, and available in places where campgrounds simply do not exist, like the middle of a bustling city. Most Level 2 EV chargers are either free to use or charge by the hour at very low rates, around $1 to $2. Some shopping centers even offer them at no cost as a perk to attract customers. A resourceful van dweller can park, walk inside for a coffee, or to use the restroom, come back an hour later and find their battery bank has gained a significant charge for the price of nothing. The converter unit is a one-time purchase. Once you have it in your kit, every EV station across the country becomes a potential cheap, fast power source for your home on wheels. So there you have it, 10 actionable hacks. The first 6 hacks on this list cost less than $50 combined. A curtain partition, some rolls of Reflectix, a pot of boiling water, a hearty meal, a 12-volt electric blanket, and the engine you already own. That combination alone is enough to survive most winter nights in most parts of the country without suffering. Add a diesel heater for $150, and the cold stops being a survival threat entirely. Add alternator charging and solar panels, and electricity stops being something you have to constantly worry about. Find an EV charging station adapter, and $5 buys you days of stored power on demand. None of this requires a $60,000 custom van build from Instagram. None of it requires a trust fund or a corporate sponsorship deal. The people who figured most of these hacks out were not doing it for YouTube content or likes. They were doing it because they had to survive. And the solutions they came up with are simple, cheap, and undeniably real. If you know someone living in a vehicle right now, please send them this video. One of these 10 hacks might be the very thing that gets them through the coldest night of the year. Stay warm out there.